Too many organizations are suffering from a lack of clarity in responsibility and a lack of clarity in information flow. Too many projects get mixed results and missed deadlines because we don't have clarity in how information is supposed to flow across the team. If we don't fully embrace and understand the chain of command, then we won't have clarity. Welcome back to another episode of Increase. I'm your host, Blake Anderson. It's a pleasure to be here with you for episode 63. Increase is a podcast where we are trying to get better results. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect your results to change. You've got to start doing things differently so that you can get different results. And I hope that I'm giving you the tools to start making the changes, to start getting immediate results. I believe that a lot of the things that we dig into in this podcast, they are spiritual concepts, but we learn how to apply them tactically to start knowing what we can do right now to get the change that we're looking for. As we've been going through the organizational leadership framework, really it's been a master class on how to lead an organization. Not just so much one-on-one, though there's plenty of that in there, but how do you assemble a team? How do you lead them to greater places? How do you accomplish something much greater than yourself? And there's been things in there, no matter where you find yourself in the org chart or the chain of command, whether you're at the bottom or the top, there's things that you can do to make positive change in your organization and lead to a better place. You've heard me say that, like Maxwell says, leadership is influence, but I would say leadership is also responsibility. So the person who has influence with another, but is also willing to take responsibility, that is a leader. And so you can find yourself at the bottom of the organization and still be a leader if you have influence with your team or with the people above you, but you also are willing to take responsibility for the results. If you'll do that, you're a leader. You're a leader, and continue to do that in greater levels and watch doors continue to open for you to continue to climb your org chart and be asked to take on greater and greater responsibility. So I told you after we finished the organizational leadership framework, which, by the way, if you haven't watched all episodes, go back. It's a masterclass on leadership. That there's going to be some bonus material, some things that we didn't have time to really cram into those episodes. It is important when we talk about how to apply these in the right way and get results. We gave what was a basic framework, but it's important that there's some additional material that we can start to apply. And today is just the case. We're talking about the leadership chain of command. Chain of commands, concept that you might normally used to be hearing in a military setting, but I think it's so appropriate for leadership in an organization. And I'm not a proponent of bureaucracy and hierarchy that holds people down, but I think the chain of command is an important understanding that everyone must have if you're going to be effective in your organization. Too many organizations are suffering from a lack of clarity in responsibility and a lack of clarity in information flow. Too many projects get mixed results and missed deadlines because we don't have clarity in how information is supposed to flow across the team. We're leaving too many people out of the loop. And have you ever been a person who was left out of the loop of a meeting? Maybe your boss bypassed you and went below you to the person that reports to you and told them what to do, and you wondered why they were doing something other than you said, yet they thought that you should have known because the boss said so. You see, if we don't fully embrace and understand the chain of command, then we won't have clarity, and therefore we're going to have results that maybe we didn't plan on, and we don't want that. So this is going to be one of those really obvious things when I explain it, but if you'll take the time to really think through your chain of command, it's going to make a big difference in your results. I've seen it make a big difference with the teams that I lead. It's something that we refer to often. It's something that, as simple as it is, we revisit on a regular basis because our workflow and information flow in our organization flows along the chain of command. And when something starts to get off or out of whack, then we either have an information issue in our chain of command, or we likely have a lack of clarity somewhere in positions or processes. So, as I said before, a chain of command in your organization provides clarity of responsibility and clarity of information flow. So a chain of command, just for those of you who are listening, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I have a diagram over here. But the chain of command uh, is like a chain where there is links together, and each link represents someone on the org chart who's responsible for something. Okay, and so in the chain of command I have here, one of the companies that I run is a construction company. And so this provides a very easy to understand chain of command. And I know there's a lot in corporate culture now that's trying to do decentralized command, which I'm a big proponent of, but it still doesn't get rid of the chain of command. Because decentralized command is about empowering people all the way down the chain. It's really not about getting rid of the chain. Okay. And so in this diagram I've got 7 chains. And so there's 7 links of different roles and responsibilities from the owner of a property that we're building something on down to the actual laborers who are going to be doing the actual work. Okay. And when you're a smaller company, you don't probably have as many chains, but as you grow, you're going to add links to the chain. Now, if you're not careful, then things are going to slow way down. They're going to get more expensive and you're going to get worse results. But if you embrace the chain and what it's supposed to do, it doesn't have to be the case. So in our chain of command, we start at the bottom of the chain, and this is the person that's doing the actual work. So on a construction site, you have a carpenter with a hammer who is pounding nails into a 2x4 to erect a house. Okay, that carpenter is on a team, and his boss is the foreman of that of his team. And so the second chain up is the foreman, and that foreman has to answer to his boss, who is the subcontractor or owns the company who's doing the carpentry work. Now, the owner of the company doing the carpentry work reports to the superintendent of the general contractor who is responsible for building the house. The superintendent is the person on a construction site who's on site, who's responsible for coordinating and facilitating the construction of the house. They are not responsible for doing the work. They're responsible to coordinate all the people on site putting the house together. That superintendent is responsible to a project manager who's more of an office staff person who is going to be scheduling everything way in advance and get everything sent to the site for the superintendent to coordinate. Now, that project manager is accountable to and reports to a construction manager who might be the owner of the construction company. And then they are ultimately report and responsible to the property owner who is footing the bill or paying the construction company to build the house, right? So if you're the owner of a property and you're having a home built, then your direct contact is the construction manager or the owner of the construction company. You likely do not have the direct cell phone number to every single laborer that might work on that home. I would wager to say there's upwards of almost 100 people who might step on a job site just to build a single home. The owner of the property paying to have it done doesn't have a way to communicate with every single person. He or she normally has one point of contact, and that would be the business owner or the general contractor, who then has a hierarchy of people responsible for different things to get that house built. Thus, we've created a chain of command. Pretty obvious, I think. But here's what we really need to dig into. What this chain shows us is it shows us responsibility and shows us information flow. So ultimately, responsibility starts at the top and flows down. And so you are responsible for everybody under you in the chain of command. So if you are the construction manager, you're accountable to the owner for what's being built, and you as the construction manager would be responsible for the work that everybody below you does. Okay? And if you are the superintendent, though the subcontractor and the laborers doing the work don't work for your company, you're ultimately responsible for the work that they do. So responsibility flows down, and everybody is responsible for the people below them, and they're accountable to everyone above them. So if you're the subcontractor who owns a company who's just doing the painting, you're responsible for your employees, but you're accountable to the building company you're working for, and you're accountable to the superintendent, who's your direct report, the person that you're directly reporting to. So responsibility in the chain of command flows down, and accountability flows up. Now, this is super important to establish first because the main importance of the chain of command is information flow. But first, we have to establish responsibility and accountability. And if you remember what we talked about in the third step of the leadership framework, that responsibility is more of a personal matter and accountability is a relational matter, but we're responsible for and we're accountable to. So I'm responsible for my team members, my direct reports, and I'm accountable to my boss, or I'm accountable to the owner, the client who's writing the check. Okay? So responsibility flows down, accountability flows up. Now it's important for you to know who you're responsible for. Some of you might find yourself on a team and you're going crazy because someone that you don't even have direct contact with is making decisions or doing work that you're responsible for, and you're being held accountable for the quality of the work that they do. So it's really important that whatever you're responsible for, you understand who is in that chain and what you're taking responsibility for. But you also cannot shirk that responsibility. Great leaders take responsibility for the results. And then when you understand this flow of responsibility, whenever there's a breakdown, a breakdown below you, you're going to take responsibility to make sure that gets worked out because ultimately you're going to be accountable for it. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's important to understand responsibility because where the chain helps organizations the most is with information flow. One of the biggest problems that teams and organizations have is not having clear information flow. Not everybody has access to the information they need, or information is not flowing efficiently up the chain of command. If it flows in a circuitous way or leaves people out, then you have people that don't have all the information they need to do the project or the work that they are responsible for. There's nothing more maddening than when you have information that's not been given to you, information you're responsible for or that is meaningful for what you're doing, but it's not given to you because someone assumed that someone else was giving it to you. So when you take the time to take out this chain of command, we go information flow. And so here's how information flows down the chain of command. Information starts at the top and flows down. And so plans, instructions, and broad details start at the top and work their way down. Let's describe this. If I'm the owner of a property and I'm having an investment home built, in my mind, I'm thinking 1,300 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, granite countertops, LVP flooring, and it'll rent for $1,800 a month. Okay, that's the things that is going through my mind as an owner. Okay, that level of detail. Well, that's actually really broad when you compare it to the laborer who's doing the work, because an owner thinks in terms of very broad detail, as more of a visionary level, and on down the chain, the information gains granular detail as it goes. So information starts broad and gets passed down, but it's on the owner to supply the information. So in a house, an owner would hire an architect to put all the details for the plan together, and that information would get passed down. But even in the architectural plan, no matter how detailed it still is likely not to tell you how many nails you need, or where to put those nails, or what type of tool that you will use to install those nails into the wood. So details have to be passed down. So plans are flowed down the chain of command, and they add detail with every rung. So every person on the chain will add detail as they give it to the next person, until the last person on the chain is actually doing the work, and they're thinking in terms of granular detail, right? The other thing that flows down would be instructions and strategy would flow down. Now, the strategy of an owner might think in terms of I want this property done in 6 months to get a tenant in there, whereas the laborer might be thinking, I've got 2 hours to lay the tile in a bathroom. Okay, so detail starts broad, gets granular. Instructions start broad, strategy starts broad, gets granular in its detail as it goes down the chain. Now, information has to flow down, but information also has to flow up. So what kind of information flows up the chain of command? Well, status updates flow up the chain of command, and that type of information originates at the bottom. So we get status updates of work actually being done. It's done on the ground level, but ultimately that information has to flow up the chain and get to the top, so that everyone is able to make real-time decisions based on the actual work being done on the project. Okay? So status updates flow up, as well as questions, clarifying questions flow up the chain. Okay? Plans flow down, status updates flow up. Pretty simple stuff so far. But here's the most important thing to embrace. You can't skip a chain. I'll say it again. When information flows, you cannot skip a rung in the chain. It's super important that the information is delivers through the chain. Now we'll get to how we keep it from being too bureaucratic, because I know what you're saying. Man, that sounds like a really long process. Now, thank God for technology in 2024 that empowers us to allow information to flow expeditiously through the chain. But let's paint a scenario in which this becomes a problem. So here's a problem that I have. I'm a construction manager who's building projects for a property owner. But because I have relationship with so many of the subcontractors that now work for our company, it's really easy for me to pick up the phone and make a direct call to the grading contractor on site who's working on something, especially if the owner and I are having a conversation about stormwater and site drainage. I might call the subcontractor directly. Now, think about what could be dangerous here if I call the sub directly. So I skip my project manager, I skip my super, and I call the sub directly and I say, let's do it this way. Now, in the moment, that's a super fast way to handle a problem. I don't have to wait for information to flow. I just call him directly. The problem, though, is if I don't let the project manager or the super know what decision was made when I called the subcontractor, then they're out of the loop, and they might show up to the site and think, what in the world is going on here? No one told me about this, and I didn't ask the sub to do this. Who gave him why did he think that he could do that? Yet the sub was thinking, well, I was told by the owner of the company to do this work. So people could be out of the loop. Some information that skips the chain could throw off a production schedule, could change a budget, could impact so many things that not everybody is privy to or aware of. There are so many details that a project manager and a superintendent are managing to successfully complete a project that involve 20 subs that a construction manager or the owner of a property have no idea. And you could think that you're moving quickly by calling the sub directly, but actually slow everything down when you screw up the plan and things get out of order. So, when the information flows, it has to make sure that everybody gets the information as it goes down the chain. Now, a way we use technology in our company to keep that process very quick. There's lots of shared technology, like simply Google Drive. Shared information on Google Drive. I can put information in a Google Drive that's now available to everybody in the chain. We also use a project management software that allows everyone to see all the work getting done. And so a super can put information in a daily log in the project management software that the owner can then see. Okay, and he not have to call the PM, to call me, to call the owner. By placing information in the right place, it's available to everybody. So by using open source software and embracing decentralized authority in the chain of command, then we can keep this chain from being slow and hierarchical, but we can still keep the information flowing and available to all the right people. So I want you to think about your chain of command. I want you to take a piece of paper and I want you to draw your chain. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, believe you're drawing vertically rungs of chain link that are linked together. And the way to draw the chain is start at the very bottom. Who is the person that's doing the actual work on the ground? And work your way up the chain based on responsibility, decisions, and information flow. Find your place in the chain and begin to identify the people in your organization who serve at each level. Even if you find yourself in the middle and the rest of your company does not want to take the time to map out their chain of command, by you knowing it, you will see a greater level of productivity for your team. You'll see a greater level of efficiency and clarity for the work that's being done. And ultimately, I think you'll see a more comprehensive, complete product, and you'll see a greater level of success. Now, I've been talking with some of the folks offline who've been engaging with me on these episodes, and they're finding a lot of fruit when they've gone back to their bosses and say, hey, can we do this exercise together so that I understand the organization better? It's been revelatory, as these are oftentimes exercises that even the owners of companies haven't even thought to do, but are bringing clarity to the teams and will help you bring clarity to the work that you're responsible for and the people that you are leading and working with. Simple concept, don't overcomplicate it, but take the time to do it. Take the time to draw it out. Trust me, this will bring clarity to your organization. You will see it in a clear way. You'll feel a greater level of confidence. This will also probably start to reveal to you the missing links in the chain, the missing links of information flow. Many organizations filled with talented people are failing every day because they don't have a good process and they don't have good information flow. And it takes a simple technique like this to change all that. So I hope this impacts your organization. Let me know all about it. Hit me up with a direct message. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Increase.